journey with me today in Nehemiah, book of Nehemiah, second chapter, verses 11 through 18. When you have that account, which you simply signify by saying amen. Thank you so very much, and I will begin our reading as thus. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. And I arose in the night, and some few men who were with me, neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me except for the one that I rode in on. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon gate, and to the dung port, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates thereof were consumed with fire. Then I went on to the gate fountain and to the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that I was able to have him pass. Then went I up in the night by the brook and viewed the wall and turned back and entered by the gate of the valley and then returned. And the rulers knew not whither I went or what I did, neither had I as yet told it to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the rulers, nor to the rest that did the work. Then said I unto them, Ye see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come and let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. Then I told them of the hand of my God, which was good upon me, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. And they said, Let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. I want to talk from this tag. It all begins with your cup. It all begins with your cup. Let me share with you, at the 8 o'clock, I preached from these 3 points. Gary, I said that I am now where I need to be. I shared that what I see is worse than I imagined. But thirdly, I said, now it's time for me to get this thing together. To share with you the context of this text, Nehemiah was the cupbearer for the king. I shared with you on last week that Nehemiah came before the king. His countenance was sad, cotton, so much so that the king was concerned about him. Nehemiah shared with him why he was sad, Brother Ellison, and said, haven't you, the walls of Jerusalem are burned down. Why would I come before you acting as if everything is okay? Things are bad back home. He requested that he could go back to Jerusalem and begin to build up the walls. The king acquiesced to his request. Wesley sends him back to rebuild the wall. Nehemiah finally arrives, Kevin, in Jerusalem. Now, I need to share this with you. It was 800 miles from where he first bared the cup to the walls of Jerusalem. So somebody knows that that is a long journey. Certainly nothing is done overnight. Some things take time. There's a process to things. Anything worth having takes time doing. And so he's traveling, Deacon Roy. He's there. He finally arrives, and he arrives, Brother Cooks, under the cover of darkness. This is going to mean something in just a few minutes. He arrives under the cover of darkness. He shares with us, and not that he snuck into town, but he comes into town under the veil of darkness. Now, before we reach any further, you need to understand that the walls of Jerusalem are burned to the ground. Now, to give you some context to this, Deacon Watkins, this did not just happen. This actually happened over 150 years ago. But it's still on Nehemiah's mind. God has raised up somebody to do something that happened 150 years ago. This is going to get you right now. Don't give up no matter how long the pain has been there. Don't give up no matter how long the hurt has been there. Don't give up no matter how long you've had the issue. God doesn't give up, so therefore you don't give up. 150 years later, God places and raises up a man by the name of Nehemiah to go do what was previously attempted to be done 75 years prior to this moment. I'm coming to get you with this. 75 years prior to this moment, somebody tried to rebuild the wall, but they failed. Can I come help somebody? That it may not be on your watch. You can just start the work, but God might raise somebody else up to finish the work. The true test of humanity is planting trees under which shade you'll never sit. I wish I had somebody here to help me preach. Amen. But Nehemiah is the man now for the job. God sends him to Jerusalem. He finally arrives after 800 miles, 800 long, tedious, cumbersome, arduous miles, feet swollen, back hurting, swollen veins and muscles. He's finally there, frustrated. He understands that he knows he's going to see things and it's going to be worse than he ever imagined. Is there anybody here who's ever got to the doctor and it's actually worse than you imagined? Anybody here looked at your bank account lately and it's worse than you imagined? Anybody here in a relationship and you came to understand that it's almost beyond repair, is worse than you imagine? Is there anybody here in your mental, emotional condition, you say to yourself in transparency that I'm actually worse off than I thought? But I got some good news for you, because when you get into that position or you get into that circumstance, you fit the category and you fit the bill for God to go to work. Turn to somebody and say, I'm jacked up from the floor up, but that's God's opportunity to bless me. That's God's opportunity to pick me up. That's God's opportunity to turn me around. I'm broke, busted, and dusted, but I'm a good candidate now for God to go to work on me. Turn to somebody and say, I don't have it all together, but I'm good. I'm a good candidate now for God to touch me from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet. He don't need to touch you if you got it all together. I need about 30 people who say, I ain't got it all together. I'm messed up, man. I've blown it. I fumbled the ball of life. I blew it. I backslid. I'm just not, but I thank God that he's able. Watch the text. This takes place. Nehemiah's name means Yahweh will comfort. So no matter how bad it looks, his very name has the rudimentary meaning that God will comfort. Can I come knock on your door and come up to your porch and let me in this morning? That God will comfort you. No matter how bad it is, no matter how sick you are, no matter how vast the circumstances, no matter how dark the night, no matter how long the night, no matter how bleak the journey, no matter how broke you are, no matter how irreparable the relationship is, God will comfort. Tap your neighbor. In fact, wake them up if they're asleep and say, God will comfort. Gary, this was written 1,000 years after the life of Moses, 400 years before Christ, 100 years after the last line of the book of Ezra, 150 years since the destruction of Jerusalem. Ezra 4 tells us 75 years prior to this attempt, a rebuilding attempt failed. Now God has raised up Nehemiah and comforted him with the fact that God is with him. Nehemiah arrives at night, Sister Nikki, under the cover of darkness, and he looks over the scene. And the first point that I want to suggest to you at this moment is sometimes you have to start under the cover of darkness. Preston, there it is. Sometimes the work that God has given you, sometimes it comes in the veil of darkness. Sometimes your best work happens at midnight. Sometimes the greatest revelations come when everybody is sleeping. Turn to your neighbor and say, you've been looking for him by day, but sometimes, Gabby, he comes at night. In fact, the best sermons I ever got was when everybody was sleeping. The best revelation I ever got was when the whole house was quiet. The best visitation I ever got from the Holy Spirit was under the cover of darkness. You're in darkness right now, but that's when God works best. Turn to somebody and say, oh, you've been cursing the darkness. There's a Chinese proverb that says, don't curse the darkness, just light a candle. Turn to somebody and say, stop cursing your darkness. God is the candle in your darkness. God is the light in your dim place. God is the one who comes, and when he comes, all night has to run away. God is able to bless you under the cover of darkness. Look at verses 12, and you'll see what I mean. Look at verse 12. He says, and I arose when? In the night. Come on, somebody. He arose in the night. Look at verse 13 in the beginning. And I went out when? Sometimes you have to work under the cover of darkness. Second thing the text suggests, Brother Derwin, is everybody doesn't always need to know what you're doing. Preach, Tim. I know I'm in the text. Everybody doesn't always need to know what you're up to. Sometimes you sabotage your own blessing by letting everybody know what you're doing. I like to keep things silent, Janet, because I don't want nobody messing up my blessing. I don't want anybody to poison my situation. I don't want anybody planting any seeds of discord. And so I've learned to keep things to myself until God opens doors. Some of y'all put too much on Facebook. Preach, Tim. I'm trying to help you. Don't get mad at me. You ain't got to tweet everything. We got enough tweeting in the White House. You just need to understand that sometimes you got to keep stuff under wraps until God tell you to do so. You'll have plenty of bragging time, but you need to sometimes keep some stuff to yourself. Turn to your neighbor and say, baby, just keep it to yourself until God work it out. You ain't got to tell everything you going through. You ain't got to share all your storms. You ain't got to tell your girls all the stuff that he doing to you. You just got to keep it quiet sometime and let God work it out. Turn to your neighbor and say, you ain't got to tell everybody everything. Watch the text. Everybody doesn't need to always know what you're doing. Look at verse 12. You don't believe me? I'm going to give you a word. He says, and I arose in the night, Deacon Smith, and I took some men, few men. I didn't take everybody. Watch that. Neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. I like Nehemiah because he knows how people are. He said, I didn't tell everybody what I'm up to. I didn't tell everybody what God told me. Come on, somebody, because I know that some people can't celebrate with you. I know that not everybody is happy for you. I know that everybody ain't got my back. I know that I ain't in everybody's best interest. So it just behooves you to keep some things to yourself. You don't believe me? Watch verse 16. And the rulers knew not what? Where I went. They were wondering where I went or what I did. Neither had I yet told anybody. I didn't tell the Jews. I didn't tell the priests. I didn't tell the nobles. I didn't say nothing to the rulers. I didn't say nothing to nobody. Can I come help you, Kim? That you ain't got to tell nobody what God is doing for you. God will show them your, come on somebody. God will show it after a while. After a while, when you come skipping in here after your storm, God done blessed them. When you come skipping in here after your divorce, God done kept them. Come on somebody. When you come in here slipping that you would have blew your brains out, but it wasn't for God to help you and bless you and touch you, you wouldn't be here today. You ain't got to tell everybody. Oh, the story will get told. Turn to somebody and say, I got a testimony. Stacy, I'm just trying to help somebody. The text says and suggests that everybody doesn't always need to know what you're doing. Thirdly, Aquila, can I share what the text I believe is saying to us? You can't take everyone or everything with you. When Nehemiah goes to the gates and he looks it over, Papa C, he knows that he has a serious task ahead of him. He knows that this situation is worse than he ever could imagine. And when you look in the crisis, when you see a crisis and you see a challenge in your life, amen, you cannot take everybody with you through what you're getting ready to go through. You don't need any negative energy with you by the stuff you're getting ready to go through. You don't need any haters or anybody who's throwing shade on you when you get the stuff I'm getting ready to go through. I only need positive people around me. The stuff I'm getting ready to go through, I need some people people who got my back. The stuff I'm getting ready to handle, I don't need no hell raisers. I need some people who can get a prayer through. Turn to your neighbor and say, that's why my circle so small, because I know that I can't take every Negro with me. I got to do some things by myself because not everybody got my heart. Turn to somebody and say, cut your corner short. Sometimes you have to trim the tab. Sometimes you have to trim the crew. Sometimes you have to trim your boys. Sometimes you have to say, later, girl, I'll get with you later on. Why? Because you can't come where I'm going. Come on, somebody. You ain't got the anointing to go where I'm going. You ain't got the power to ride where I'm riding. You ain't got the wherewithal to go where I'm going. I got to cut my crew. Not that I don't love you. Not that I don't like you. You just can't come where God is taking me. They're working me hard, Sheriff. I think the fourth thing, and I just got 2 more points for you, Evangelist Burgess. My ministerial staff got on me this morning and said, don't preach so hard, Pastor. I'm going to try to listen to him. Look at verse 15, and I'm going to give you the fourth point. Verse 15, Nikki says, then went I up in the night by the brook, Deacon Jolly. Look what I did. I viewed the wall, and I turned back. In other words, the real thing he did, he saw it, and the sight was so frightening that he couldn't stand to look at it. And I wish I had somebody. It was so devastating. It was so calamitous. It was so chaotic. The scene was bad. It's worse than he had imagined. Nobody told him it was this bad. And he looked, and he actually had to turn away. As there's some things in your life that is so bad, you actually got to turn away from it. But turning away doesn't mean I'm walking away. I wish I had somebody to help me in here. It just means I got to get myself together after what I just saw. I got to get my mind together to get on this thing. I got to get on my knees before I tackle this thing. I got to go in my prayer closet before I tackle this thing. I got to fast before I tackle this thing. I got to get rid of some folks before I tackle this thing. I'm turning back, but that don't mean I'm walking away. So the fourth thing is, take a good look around you and see what needs to be done. Papa say I'm trying to help somebody today. Take a good look around you and see what needs to be done. I'm coming to help somebody. That's all. I'm not fussing. But we got so many people who do nothing but complain. Preach to him. Look around and suck their teeth. Roll their eyes. Knock leaderships back out. Kick my back in. Run my deacons down. Run my trustees down. Listen. If you ain't got nothing positive to say, then don't say. Come on, somebody. You might want to take a look around and see what you can do about the situation. Don't talk about my choir. Don't talk. Come on, somebody. I'm just preaching. I'm preaching in here today. Look around and see what you can do about it. Turn to your neighbor and say, close your mouth and see what you can do about it. You might be the answer to our problem if you help us. You might just be the one to help open the door, but you're kicking her back in. Come on, somebody. Turn to your neighbor and say, next time you get ready to gossip, look around and see how you can play a part in building up the wall. I got to run. I know you're mad at me now. But I need to tell you one more thing, and I got to leave you. Not after you can't do some things in light. You got to come under the cover of darkness. Everybody doesn't always need to know what you're doing. You can't take everyone and everything with you. Take a good look around and see what needs to be done. The fifth thing the text suggests is God will raise up somebody to help the cause. It's right in the text. If you look at verses 15, look at what it says. Then I went up in the night by the brook and viewed the wall and turned back and entered by the gate of the valley and so returned. Watch this. And the rulers knew not whither I went. I didn't tell anybody, but watch verses 17 and 18. Then said I unto them. Somebody say, God will give you a them. Watch this. Remember before he took a few, but now God has raised up some thems. Turn to your neighbor and say, are you part of them? Are you part of the ones, them that God can use? Are you part of them that God can count on? Are you part of them that pastor's going to need? Are you part of them that won't gossip? Are you part of them that won't spread rumors? Turn to your neighbor, see if you're sitting beside of them. I'm getting ready to close, so I'm going to need a little more monitor, Cotton. I'm getting ready to close, just a little more monitor. I'm struggling today with my voice. But watch the text. I'm almost done. God will raise up somebody to help the cause. Look at verse 17 and 18. Then said I, Calvin, do you see the distress that we are in? How Jerusalem lieth waste? Do y'all like the sermon? Yes. And the gates thereof are burned with fire. Watch this, Deacon Watkins, come. Who is he talking to? Them. Let us, not me, us. God ain't got time for me. He need us. God don't just work through I. He need us. Turn to somebody and say, I'm tired of the I team. We need the we team. We can't build unless we build together. Watch the text. It says that the gates thereof, no, verse 17, come and let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. Then I told who? Them. Then I told them that the hand of God was on me, and that the king had given me permission to be here. Verse 18, let us rise up and what? So they strengthened their hands, because this is a good work. So God will raise up somebody to help the cause. And verse 16 through 18 simply will signify the fact that we've got to get to work. Turn to your neighbor and say, let's go to work. And that's what this congregation needs. We need to go to work. To share something with you about the walls being burned down, Stacy. The city was not safe. It was vulnerable. The enemies could get in. And so Nehemiah is there for many purposes, because it made no sense to rebuild the temple if we still had the breach of the city. I wish I'm going somewhere with this. See, a lot of people were focused on rebuilding Solomon's temple. But Nehemiah said that would be like putting the cart before the horse. There's no need to concentrate on that first. We've got to fortify our city. I wish I had somebody. We've got to make sure we're safe before we do anything else. And so what I'm trying to tell you is, let's get to work. But let's understand that there is a prioritized order to this work. I wish we could be on one accord. Tap your neighbor and say, neighbor, we need to be on one accord. I may as well close. Y'all getting tired, but I need to tell somebody that I appreciate your help, but you need to get on the same page as me. I need to help somebody. I need your help. I need your prayers. I need your support. But please understand that there's a priority to how we're going to begin the work. God may be telling me to raise up the walls in this place, but not only raising up the walls, I got to come and mess with somebody. There's going to be some walls that I'm going to tear down too, because, oh, brothers and sisters, some of the walls that we have they're not relevant in this context. Some walls will go up but some walls must come down. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I want to help out. I want to do my part. Whatever you have, you can do your part. Is there anybody here that's got to lend a hand? Whatever that is, you may not be able to sing like Gary, but I need your little voice somewhere. You may not be able to preach like Dr. Blue, but we need to hear your voice. You may not be able to praise dance like Evangelist Burgess, but whatever you can do, I need. You may not be able to carry a tune in a bucket, but whatever you have, I want you to give it over to God. Do me one favor, grab your neighbor's hand, come on and shake that hand. Shake that hand like you're trying to shake it off. Look that neighbor in the face and in the eye and say, neighbor, can I count on you? Can I count on you to start helping the house? Can I count on you to bring whatever brick you have? Can I count on you to get a hammer in your hand? Can I count on you to take the ruler out of your pocket? If you can't do nothing, then I'm asking you for your prayers. Is there anybody in the house? You may say, I'm not gifted, but I sure can pray. Is there anybody here who can testify that if you pray, we'll go up? If you fast, we'll go up. If you're tired, we'll go up. If you stop gossiping, the walls will go up. If you stop the lying, the walls will go up. If you cut out the rumors, the walls will go up. Is there anybody here that's a wall builder? I need about 50 wall builders in the house. Turn to your neighbor and say, I'm on the wall. I'm on the wall. I may not be your cup of tea, but I'm on the wall. Won't you stand to your feet? Let your backbone slip and put your hand on your hip. Rear back and open your mouth and say, I'm on the wall. I'm putting the devil on notice. I'm on the wall. I'm putting my haters on notice. I'm on the wall. I'm putting naysayers on notice. I'm on the wall. I'm putting gossipers on notice. I'm on the wall. Somebody say, yeah!